Uh, Now it gave me some color. Okay, so first of all, good morning. Good morning, Instagram family. Secondly, I have got a filter on this. It's not one I usually play with. Uh, I usually like to play with the lights saturation, and there's a new cool saturation filter. But this one is one of those makeup filter things, which I usually stay away from because I get real hot and bothered by someone's face changing so much. But we're playing, so I'm gonna let myself play with this. It's the only way I'm gonna put makeup on. Plum Vintage Barware and Veronica, so good to see you. So I'm talking about a lot of things this morning. Queen of Cups energy, and if you are not a tarot practitioner, if you don't believe in tarot, if you're not interested in it, I want you to listen from the perspective of an archetype. This is archetypes, it's a template, it's a way of expressing our energy that can be very beneficial. So it's not about the tarot, it's about the archetype, it's about the symbolism, and it's about how we can use this human um, characteristic to navigate what's coming. What's coming in our personal lives, regardless of what time and place we are in the cosmology of the universe, and what's coming this year in the cosmology of the universe. So, I'm also just going to say I use my hands a lot, and I was in some dye last night, so you're going to see my hands flash by. They are healthy and well. They were painting. So I also want to point out that my voice and my mouth are not synced up on these videos, and I cannot figure it out. I don't know when it started. So if it troubles you, if it makes your brain hurt, just don't put the phone down, let the voice play out. What I look like is not the important message. It's what I'm saying that is more interesting to me that you catch. So if you can't watch it because this uh, disconnect is distressing to you, don't watch me, just listen. So let me just talk about Queen of Cups energy. So if you work with tarot at all, this is traditional, and I'll bring it in a little closer. This is the Usui Pagan Other Worlds deck, and my decks are in storage right now. This is the one that I could get to. It's a beautiful deck. If you like the backs of cards, it's a classic Rider-Waite style of deck. And I also brought this one if you're someone who prefers not to look at human forms when you're working with this imagery. Then this is from the Maracai Tarot, which is they're both independent decks, but this is all animal features. It's a beautiful deck. I don't know the creator's name, but Merakai, Merakai. And I'll just show you these pictures, and I'm just gonna talk for a minute or so about tarot. So again, there are a lot of people who are put off by tarot, who think it's a bunch of nonsense, who think it's like religious blasphemy, or that you're going to hell if you mess with it, things like this. I certainly grew up in a religious family, and I grew up with that teaching and that awareness too, like tarot is bad, divination is bad, stay away from it. So for a long time I did. What I want to say to you, there's so much I want to say to you about that. So I'll just drop a couple of these seeds. And again, if you've got a deck, if you work with this imagery, go pull your deck out, pull your cards out. Queen of Cups is what we're talking about today. And I'm just going to give you some pointers for how to work with the archetype of the Queen of Cups, okay? So it's not about the cards. The cards don't have magic in my practice. In someone else's practice, they very well may have magic. That's not how I work with them. They are like pulling dream imagery into physical form and working with things symbolically in a tangible way. So again, I see a couple of other people have joined. This is the Usui deck, which is really beautiful, a classic Rider-Waite style if you like that. And this is the Maracai, which is a gorgeous deck, all animal based, because some people get distracted, offended by the human portrayal or the portrayal of humans on the cards, and so then their brain won't let them access the information. So just a couple things on tarot. Or maybe I'll just go to divination. Divination is a skill that women have been deeply tapped into for generations and generations, like throughout the history of human culture. Men and women, the male and female mind, can both tap into divination. What I am saying here is that it has been largely a woman's practice. And when Christianity became the branded religion, which is how the Roman Empire approached Christ's teachings and the historical documentation that's collected in the Bible, a lot of women's practices, women's knowledge, women's spiritual teachings and wisdom was removed from the culture, removed from the Bible. And I'm just sharing this. It's deep, deep history, and you can go investigate yourself. The reason why I'm talking about this now is because there has been a very intentional, deliberate interruption of intuitive intelligence, self-directed, self-gathered knowledge that then helps a person navigate their life based upon their own principles, their own sense of integrity and wholeness, and their own direct connection with the divine. So when it comes to practice like tarot is one of those women's practices. As I said, men absolutely have access to the practice and are very skillful as well. I am a woman. I operate in this life through a woman's perspective. And so I am also aware that divination as a tool that women use effortlessly was definitely criminalized, was actually criminalized in many Christian traditions throughout the world, cultures, politically speaking, even in the United States. To divine for someone else, it has actually been legally made impermissible on the books. And I'm sorry, my words, sometimes it takes me a while to find like the simple words, but divination has been ostracized, demonized, and criminalized across the world. And it's not because it's a demonic practice. It is because to separate people from our intuitive capacity, from our innate intelligence, is a way of controlling people. That's what I want to say about divination, and specifically tarot, because there are a lot of people who are still freaked out by it. And I just want to give you an idea of where that freaked outness is coming from culturally, and then take the information that I share, the ideas that I share, and just go do your own research and investigation. Okay, so that's my advocacy for tarot as a divinatory practice. So we're talking about archetypes and energy. Queen of Cups. The Queen of Cups, as I said in my talk yesterday, is one of those cards and messages that I just haven't really understood in my life. I haven't pulled the card very often when I've worked with the decks. It's not been a particularly interesting card for me. However, the question that I asked yesterday the black and white question. You can go back to yesterday's conversation and just watch. And what I realized when my partner was reading this card and giving her interpretation of this, of what she was seeing, is that I was feeling really anxious. And like, I'm pointing here, but I think also the anxiety was like in my head, like I wanted an answer, like I wanted a yes or no, do this answer. And what I shared with you yesterday is that as we were practicing, I realized, oh, this question that I'm asking is not a yes or no, black or white answer or question, at least not at this time. And that I need to back up and ease off the intensity of my trying to sort this particular challenge in my life out through a polarity point. So, Queen of Cups is, I'm just checking in here. I was going to say is considered the most intuitive of the cards, but I don't think that's true because the Queen of Wands and the word instinctual is actually coming up with the Queen of Wands. But I personally do experience that creative energy and the emotional inner sense of things energy, which would be Queen of Cups, to be both strongly intuitive. So how I'm pausing again and just inviting you to practice with these archetypes. So when someone talks about archetypes or symbolism, like what does 4 represent? And again, if you're just joining me, just understand I have been dyeing. I've been working with dyes. And so I use my hands a lot when I talk. And I'm just aware that the filter that I'm using for this live is picking up the color on my hands. So don't worry about me. I'm perfectly healthy. I've just been playing in some plant dye. So how to use symbolism and archetype. We start by asking questions about how do I relate with this? How do I relate with the number 4, which could be, and I'm just using examples. You guys know when I do these conversations, I like to teach because it's not about one person having the knowledge or information. It's about us learning how to use this knowledge and information for ourselves and our own lives so that we can live a good life, live our life in a good way. So the number 4, for example, some of the words that we use around the number 4 are balance. That's actually one of the primary words: balance, solidity, earthiness, groundedness. So if you come across the number 4, if the number 4 is like prominent in your life, if you're noticing the number 4 in whatever ways, for whatever reasons, the ways that we begin to use and work with symbolism and archetypes, we start asking ourselves, how does this apply to me? How do I feel? How am I responding to this image or this symbol or this message in my life? Birds are another messenger that a lot of humans pay attention to. And then there's the different types of birds: cardinals, blue jays, owls. They all have different meanings, and those meanings are messages. So when it comes to a flat card with imagery on it, it's a message. And the question is, what is this message speaking to me in my life? It's not about the card, it's about the message. And this tarot is just one tool out of many for having a physical experience of a message. Now, I will also say we don't need tarot. I happen to like it because I love the imagery. I love it. I love the tactile experience of engaging and playing with the world. But I can go to my dream time. I can set up dream intentions. I can ask a question and then find the quiet in myself and pay attention to what's coming in after the question has been asked. what I'm saying is there are many, many ways to gather our information and interact with our experience in life. Tarot is just one of those. It happens to be one that I enjoy because I really love art and the creative experience of working with something in the physical. So I'm saying all of that because, again, I don't want people to get stuck on one tool. I don't want people to think this is a video about tarot. It's actually a video about an archetypal quality and how to develop symbolic, like a relationship with symbolic language. And our lives are full of symbolic language. Our lives are about relationship. So wearing rings and wearing rings on certain fingers have meaning, although that meaning is not necessarily always universal. That's where we begin to develop our own meanings and relationships. This is a whole practice and a whole path. And if you've been on any of my videos for any number of time, you understand that I put a lot of layers into what I'm speaking when I'm talking to the camera, because people are hanging out at different layers of attention and awareness, and I want to offer as many pathways onto the road and onto your path as possible, and there's a lot of pathways. So I'm going to stop with that. I'm going to talk about the Queen of Cups. So the cups often traditionally represent emotions and intuition and our feeling states. Cup. There's a little right now. So cups hold water or a liquid. We're going to just stick with water because water is representative of the unconscious in the human experience. So when I work with dreams, one of the things that I will say to a dreamer is that the quality of the water that's in your dream, the location of the water that's in your dream, the clarity or cloudiness, depth or shallowness, darkness or lightness, the aroma, all of these aspects of the water in our dreams are delivering messages. So if you are dreaming about a vast ocean, there's probably a lot in there that you're not seeing. If there are animals in your dreams, those animals in the water, sticking with water, they are also communicating to you specifics about your waters, your intuition, your emotional feeling state, your awareness or lack of awareness, areas internally where some part of you is wanting you to pay attention to something or release something or gather and hold something. If there's a container or if there's plumbing involved, if it's a bathroom scene with water, that's telling you something. So again, listen for the ways that I'm offering you an entry into the conversations. Water in your dreams. In the card with the Queen of Cups, she's a water, this is a water element, water messenger. So you'll see in the Maracai deck, we have the moon, and the moon and the water have a very close relationship. The gravitational pull of the moon impacts the waters on the earth. The tides are where we can really notice this. Where we don't notice it so much is the waters within our body, which are also impacted by the movement, the phases of the moon. If any of you have the opportunity to experience craniosacral therapy, that's working with I'm going to call them the waters, although that's simplifying it, but the waters of the cranial cavity of the head. and the waters of the spinal column of the body. Those waters in the body can be, the word manipulated is coming to mind. I'm just going to use that word. It's not a bad, negative skill set in this capacity, in this context, but we can work with the waters of the cranium and the spinal column through craniosacral, and they are also being impacted by the movements of the moon. If you want to take it further out, you can consider the reasonable idea that the pull, the gravitational relationship, or the dynamic relationship of the other planets around us are also pulling on the waters of the body. There's the cellular, intracellular fluid of the cells of our body, the waters of our fascia. All of these things are going to be impacted by our external environment. So if we're dreaming about it, if we are pulling it up in a card reading, there's a message there about paying attention to what's inward. It's about using our intuition rather than referring externally. So the interesting thing about the Queen of Cups is she's the only, in the Rider-Waite, if you're looking at a more traditional based deck, the Queen of Cups is the only queen who's looking at herself. She's looking in her own space. The other queens, the Queen of Swords, the Queen of Wands, the Queen of Pentacles, they are outward. They're looking out on the world. So the Queen of Cups is an inward movement. It's about our ability to hear, recognize, listen to our own knowing, our own guidance system, our own sense of responsiveness to like the waves of movement, vibration, emotion, feeling that are coming up against us. An interesting thing about the imagery in this card is that, so the waters, what we would recognize as the unconscious, the subtle world, the emotional feeling states, information in those areas of life. Her feet are not touching the water. Like, she's right at the edge. She has an awareness of it, but she's not in it, getting lost in it, drowning in it. That's some interpretations of the imagery that you might see if you go look this up online. So just something to keep in mind. Queens, the archetype of the queen is it is a point of mastery. It's a point of mastery, period. Some scholars who focus on tarot imagery will say that the queen, the state of queenliness, or the suit of queens in the deck, is a signal of our mastery of the internal environment. So there's this idea that the feminine state is an inner experience, and then the masculine, which would be represented by the queens, would be, or kings, would be the external mastery. I personally don't break it down that way, but I find it interesting, and if that makes sense to you, that would be something for you to work with. So, another teaching moment, something to keep in mind when we're listening to other people break something down, explain a bit of information, especially when it comes to symbolic information, archetypal information, intuitive information. My mind wants to say a couple of other things, but I'll save that for another live or another conversation. When we hear something and our intelligence, our personality, our character adds other words or shifts something around, that's important to pay attention to. Intuition is not something, symbols are not something, archetypes are not something that we are meant to go along with 1,000% and never question in terms of what's standardized about them. Symbols, again, I'm going back to this idea of having a relationship with the symbolic world. We are surrounded by a symbolic world. We're living in it. These bodies are symbolic. The organs in our bodies are symbolic. My glasses are symbolic. The clothing and the colors that we wear have a symbolic resonance to them if we choose to play with that information, which I find so enriching and such an anchor, so enriching for my life and such an anchor for all of my life, but especially these moments where there's turmoil. Inner turmoil, external turmoil. And this is one of the reasons why I'm spending time with this card. And now I'm reaching for my glasses that aren't there anymore. Like I said yesterday, it's hot and it's early morning, so it hasn't even gotten to where it's going to get later today. I'm sharing this information because I want more people to have a working relationship with the unseen realities of our life, because increasingly there will be so much noise externally, and if we do not understand how to navigate through a noisy room, and by room I mean world, by tuning inward and feeling our way around, we are gonna get lost in the sauce. We are gonna drown in the waters of the world, the noise of the world, the emotions of the world, the feelings of the world. And that is what Queen of Cups communicated to me yesterday, a reminder that these big questions that I've been trying to answer for myself about where do I move to, not about a black or white answer. It's about feeling my way. What does this experience feel like? How do I feel when I'm around certain people, certain groups of people, certain cities, in certain climates, in certain businesses? How do I feel when I think about starting certain kinds of work or revisiting certain types of work or skill sets that I've had in my life? The Queen of Cups is about feeling our way through an environment, whether it's an internal environment or an external environment, as a way of making our choices. It's a very quiet card. If you have close friends, close family, colleagues that you trust, implicitly trust, these are the people that you can work things out, and they're not going to tear you down. They're not necessarily going to have your answers for you, but they're going to be able to hear you and allow you to work things out, which is a messy process, without interrupting you, judging you. I thought I saw a hummingbird. I don't know if I've seen hummingbirds since I've lived down here. That's another thing I miss. Taking a tangent here. Fireflies and hummingbirds, but mostly fireflies. I miss being down this way, this far south. Yeah. So, the Queen of Cups is about our inner knowing. And it takes practice. It takes a lot of practice to be able to sit in a crowded room. And a crowded room could be you and one other person. You and one other person. And if you are at all sensitive to frequency, vibration, energy, that person doesn't have to say a word, and you can feel. You may not know what you're feeling, but you like the details of what you're feeling, but you can feel the movement of someone else, even if they're not speaking. So that can be a practice. Going out into the world, sitting with a friend, having lunch with someone, being on the phone, watching this live. How do you feel? What are you feeling? What are you noticing about yourself? So this is us drawing our attention inward and getting real intelligent about, like, how is this vessel moving? What am I magnetized towards? And what am I feeling like, oh, it's a little intense, it's too much, or that's just like straight up not for me, or maybe I need to go in a little slower, or like sideways, or this instrument that we have is so magnificent. I freaking love the human body. I love bodies. But the human body, this is a magnificent instrument, and that is something else that we've been taught not to recognize, understand, and care for. This instrument will tell you just about everything you need to know about how to navigate through your environment, how to navigate through your questions in life. And this instrument, tarot, is just one way to have conversations with yourself about what you need to pay attention to, or what stories are calling for your intention and attention. Tarot is just one way. Again, I enjoy the physical experience of things, but you can take this to your dream time. You can take this to your meditation space. And your meditation space can be a walking practice, a running practice, a martial arts practice. It can be a dance practice. It can be a sitting practice. It can be a washing the dishes, doing the laundry practice, a mowing the lawn practice. Attention, where we are creating enough space within ourselves to catch signals and messages about how we're responding to the world, how we're feeling about ourselves in the world, what's calling us forward in the world. So I'm just going to sit for a moment, sweat a little bit for a moment. Sweat with me. Oh my goodness. It is astonishing to me how much I love the heat. Like I've known that I'm comfortable in the heat. I've known that about myself for a very, very long time. But I can feel the heat, and there are always people in my life who come to mind, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this person would be so miserable right now. But I'm like, yeah, I'm sweating, and I could do with a different type of material on my body, but this feels so good to me. So I'm enjoying this right now. Yeah. I'm gonna teach the 4-count breath, and then I think I might teach what I called the lunar breath for the longest time, because that's how one of my yoga teachers introduced it to me. But I believe the proper name is Nada Shodhana. And I heard, so I'm taking a yin yoga training right now, and I heard my teacher pronounce it differently. So I always feel self-conscious when I pronounce things that are not in my native tongue. But I'm gonna share these 2 breathing practices with you, because if you don't have a regular way of tuning inward and creating inner stillness for yourself, these are 2 practices that are super simple. The first one you can do anywhere, anytime, and no one will know. The second one, if you practice it long enough, you'll be able to do it without the outward hand movements, but in the beginning you're going to need your hands to help you with that. So for the first breath, it's called the 4-count breath or a square breath, and you can go online and look this up, and you'll find a lot of people teaching it. Super simple, and I think I'm just going to walk you through it, and then we'll do a couple of rounds, and then you can practice. And my suggestion is that you practice when you wake up in the morning, first thing, like before you even move from the bed, definitely before you pick up the phone, and then at night as you're settling in for sleep, and then anytime throughout the day that you can remember to do this 4-count breath or the square breath. It'll help like put it into muscle memory and cellular memory when you need it. Like when you're out in the world and someone's just stressing you out or something is aggravating you, with enough practice, you'll just remember, oh, I've got this tool, and you'll drop into the tool and you'll be able to like navigate in a way that feels there's a whole bunch of words happening in here right now, so I'm just going to stop at navigate. You'll be able to navigate again. Okay, so the 4-part breath is you're going to inhale for a count of 4. You're going to pause for a count of 4. Then you will exhale for a count of 4. And then you will pause for a count of 4. And that's the pattern in a square. And you'll just keep doing this cycle until you want to stop. And you can set a timer and go for, like, let's say you've never done this before and you want to just practice this for 1 minute. Do that for 1 minute, set your timer, and when you're done, you're done. And then you can work up to however many minutes you want, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It's a way of developing a breathing practice and giving yourself a central point to train your attention on, is what we're doing when we do breath practices. It's one of the things we're doing when we do breath practices. So again, inhale to a count of 4, exhale to a count of 4. Inhale to a count of 4, pause for 4 counts. Exhale for 4 counts. Inhale for 4 counts. And it's really nice to start on the exhale. So let's just say we're going to start the practice. We would exhale first, no counts, and then we would go into our inhale, 4, pause, 4, exhale, 4, pause, 4, and go around like that. So you'll see a number of breath work practices if you get into it and explore this world. They'll start with an exhale just to flush the body out, just to get that, like to prepare the mind and the body for the practice. So let's just do a couple rounds. You guys can pause the video when it goes live, or when the recording uploads or whatever. You can pause the video and then come back. So I'm going to let you do it. I'm not going to walk you through it. We'll just do this 4 count breath together. And remember that pause. Inhale, pause, exhale, pause. Okay. That feels so good to me. And the more that you do that kind of practice, it's so simple. You can do this at the gas pump, in the grocery store, in a line. You can do it on Zoom meetings if you're still doing that. You can do it anywhere. Nobody needs to know. You can keep your eyes open. But that's one of those things you can just take out into the world and use. And again, with the repetition, at some point, you'll just be able to drop into it whenever you need it. Yeah. So I almost don't want to do the work of the other one. But I'll go ahead and show you because it's a good practice as well. So in the beginning, you'll need your hands for this. What you're going to do is you're just going to close your right side nostril. You're going to do a breathing pattern, and then you're going to close your left side, and you're actually going to start with the left and go to the right, and it's a back and forth motion. If you have sat in hatha yoga classes, especially, they love to teach this. Nada shodhana, or lunar breath is what some people might call it, and there's probably other names. Those are the two names that I know. And one of the things that this breath practice does is that we are taught that it balances the right and left hemisphere of the brain. I'm just really enjoying that 4-count breath. So I feel like the square breath can bring you into a place of just really quiet, really beautiful balance. And so can this, if you want something a little more active, or if you just want to experiment with the differences, because you will feel differences between the different types of breath work that you do. These are very cooling breath work practices, quieting practices. There are energizing, stimulating practices as well. So what you do is how I was taught most recently, and I like this, is you will place your index and your fire finger here at third eye point. You'll take your thumb, and your thumb will block the right nasal passage, and then your ring finger or heart finger will block the left passage. And so what you do is, this is one of those where you will exhale first, and then you'll breathe in through your left nostril first. You're going to block the right, you're going to breathe in through the left, and then you're going to close the left nostril, and you're going to breathe out through the right, and then inhale again, close, breathe out through the left, inhale again, and then close, and it's back and forth like that. And you can just imagine like the air traveling up through the hemispheres of the brain and in and out. And it's just like talking to you. So again, you can set a timer. I was taught to do it in cycles of 9. So you could do 9 cycles, 18 cycles, 27, and then on up. If you want to do that, do it that way. I do not yet understand why in this particular context it's cycles of 9. And I won't get into the numerology of 9, but if you want to go look up the numerology of 9, you can perhaps make some decisions for yourself. And again, that's the thing about receiving teachings from people. It's not that the person doing the teaching has all the knowledge. It's that we listen to what's being shared, and we are sparked by the things that catch our attention, and then we go do our own investigation, deep dive. We practice with what's been presented, and we come back with our version of the thing. Okay, so let's do this Nada Shodhana, or lunar breath. And again, we're going to exhale first completely, and then we're going to start with the left side. And the pinky just hangs out. So you can keep practicing that if you like. I'm just gonna talk about a couple of things that I remembered as I was doing that. You're likely to notice that one side or the other is can more easily breathe. One side may feel congested or less able to pull in a full breath. And that is normal. One of my teachers taught us to jump, or if you have a rebounder, like a proper rebounder, not one of those little cheap, like hard on the joints trampolines, but a proper rebounder or a full trampoline if you're like super lucky to have one of those. That can help move the lymph in the body. So if you're noticing that you're congested on one side or the other, you might just pay attention because it'll also move back and forth, that congestion. If you'd like to play with what you're eating, some of the things that create congestion in the body, and you probably know this at this point, but it's often helpful to be reminded. For some of us, dairy. For some of us, grains. Could be sodas, excessive sugar, certain meats for some people, certain vegetables, certain legumes for some people. Yeah, basically it could be anything, but especially alcohol, certain grains, dairy products, and certain additives that might show up in lunch meats and that kind of thing. Food dyes and colorings can be a congestive culprit. And we notice, like we're trained to notice congestion in our head and our nasal passages, but congestion also shows up in other areas of the body. So if you're feeling like joint inflammation, stiffness of movement, you might just play with what you're eating, keep a food diary, and just notice how you feel when and after you've eaten something. And then if you notice that something like creates a response in your body, just remove that. If you can remove it from your diet for, I like going 30 days, 30 to 90 days will really give you some good information. Just remove that item from your diet for 30 to 90 days and then notice how your body is responding with life, and then you can add it back in after that period of time. And for a lot of us right away, you're going to get information. I'm at the place now where I can go into a grocery store and I can look at food and my body will send off signals about whether or not that's going to be a good idea for me. And sometimes I ignore it. Like yesterday, I did a lot of driving and I had chocolate on my brain when I got back into my town, and I was very specific. I heard myself say I want cakey chocolate with icing, and I'm not gonna go to one of these like fancy high-end restaurants to get it. I'm just gonna go to the grocery store and get like the bakery pre-made garbage is what I call it, but some days that's just what I want. And I knew, like, I'll still read the ingredient labels, and I went for the one with the least additives, preservatives, all of that. But I'm saying a lot of things there. I'm saying that in my philosophy of life, it's okay to eat things that aren't always good for us, because sometimes that's just what the moment requests. We can still make better choices of the bad options that we're selecting from. And I don't eat these things every day or even every week. So these days my body is more forgiving than when I realized I needed to make some big changes. So I'm giving you permission there to play. There was something else that came up, but I don't remember what it is. So that's your practice. Choose one of those and commit to it for the next 28 days. Numbers are arbitrary. There is a meaning for them, but you can go research the meaning and see what you want to do with that yourself. Okay, Oh, thoughts on seasonal congestion. Yeah. Yeah, so thank you to everyone for the feedback. I don't read the comments when I'm talking because I get so distracted, but I'll go back through and just address, and then you can watch the video. So seasonal congestion, a couple of things. If it's a recurring seasonal, like if you know every season this particular thing happens, um, across the board, I'm going to suggest that you play with your food. And I do like to play with your food. So just take a look at what you're eating right now and see if you are regularly eating any of the major. I don't like to demonize food, but if you're eating any of the major congestors, again, dairy, alcohol, grains, some of the preservatives, especially in lunch meat, um, food dyes. I'm looking for other options. Then if you're feeling really bold and you can remove all of those things from your diet, and when I say diet, I'm not talking about weight loss, I'm talking about just the way that we eat. If you're feeling really bold and you can just remove all of that from your daily grazing for 30 days, it'll give you information. And then what you do, this is part of the elimination diet, you eliminate what you suspect is a problem, and then you one by one reintroduce that. You have to eliminate it for a long enough period of time so that your body can actually make adjustments and maybe let go of some of the reactive responses that it had to like maintain its homeostasis. So that's why 30 days, 60 days, 90 days is a good chunk of time to do this, because you'll get real information. And then one at a time, you reintroduce cheese, or you reintroduce whatever it is that you're used to eating on a regular basis. You reintroduce it and you take notes. You document your body's responses. Now, if you eat if you're like, and by clean, again, I'm not interested in making judgments on what we're eating and the way we're eating. So I'm thinking of density and vibration now. Like, there's so many ways we can have the food conversation, and I'm very aware right now of using language that polarizes us or makes us feel better than somebody else about what they're doing. It's not what this is about. If your diet is pretty light, like if you're pretty much on vegetables and fruits and like lighter animals, if that's what you're doing, then I still say look at the food. It may be the way that you're combining your food. There are certain things that don't digest well together, like fats and fruits, for example. Fats take a longer time to digest. Fruits digest pretty quickly. And so if we're eating something that takes longer to digest with something that should be digesting quickly, we can create a fermentation situation in our bodies, because the fats are going to hold on to the thing that's trying to move. And, fermentation is a problem, is an issue for some folks. So you might look at how you're combining what you're eating. I moved here from the Midwest, and a lot of folks up north found success with taking honey during certain times of season, if it's like a pollen or plant allergy. So honey local to your region has been beneficial to some people. I'm aware that a lot of folks who watch my channel are in various stages of veganism, and so for some people, absolutely no animal products, byproducts, and for some people there's more flexibility. So that is an option. Keeping the house clean, dusted, the filters on, the air conditioning, mold issue. If you're in a warm climate, like mold and mildew is a big issue. So getting outside, rather than staying in the house. So there have been studies done on people who stay locked up in a house, like your windows are shut all the time, your air conditioning's on all the time, and we're just breathing in like this recycled, filtered air. Whereas if we step outside, the world is filtering the air in a very different way, and that is, I'm going to use the words, better for our breathing than staying inside of a locked building all the time. So you might experiment with putting yourself outside. Salt rooms. If you have a salt room, halotherapy center in your town, you might go check it out. That has been really helpful to some folks with respiratory challenges. Congestion and respiratory challenges, they can be the same thing, but you might look into halotherapy. Another thing that can be super effective is lymphatic drainage. And there's so many videos online about like how to do a full body lymphatic drainage. There's this amazing tool. I don't have it yet, but every time I see a video, I just want it. I've bought other products from this company, but it's called the Lymphatic Brush by Cecily Braden. And Cecily Braden, she teaches some phenomenal classes on gua sha and lymphatic drainage. So that's a resource that I would look into. Lymphatic brushing, daily lymphatic brushing. And the facial brushes are, they're softer and they're smaller, and then there's the full body lymphatic brush. And that's actually a really good practice to be in. Running, jumping can help the body move fluids out that don't need to get stuck in our tissue. And then the Human Garage, which is on Instagram here, he teaches a lot about fascial movement, and fascia again is a water structure, so you will get a lot of good information about a lot of physical ailments and congestion by watching the Human Garage and learning how to work with your fascia, take care of your fascia. So that's what I would say to that. And there's so much, there's so many ways of addressing and investigating where congestion is coming from. Yeah, I see Mark's comment about the Fireflies last night. I had another northern friend talk to me about the Fireflies. It's actually something that made this person give me a call and just check in a couple days ago. They're like, the Fireflies are out and I thought of you. I'll just share this experience. So in the Midwest up north, we saw fireflies and glowworms. So I had a friend who knew that I love many things. Things that glow are particularly fascinating. And I have had several experiences of being out in a dark field and seeing just a field full of glowworms. It's the most magical experience. And then fireflies I've loved as just like from a little child all the way up to present day me. And I was at a solstice gathering years ago, and we went down into this like little dip, little tiny valley, pretty big, open, wooded, heavily wooded space. And we were celebrating a ceremony that we had completed, and this wooded room was full of fireflies. And there were moments where when we watched them for long enough, we could see like the rhythm of their blinking. And it was a moment when I realized that they're communicating. I don't know what they're saying, but they're communicating, and there's a rhythm to it. And it even had that like in the Matrix when the zeros and ones are coming down, it had that sort of pattern to it. Not necessarily in like the zeros and ones, but it was a code. It was very much a code like that. And I have never forgotten that. I've never forgotten that experience. So, fireflies, I love. Hello, YB News. Like I said, I don't catch the comments when they're coming through. Maybe as I do this and more people join when I'm actually speaking, I'll perhaps train myself to interact in real time with that. But I see so many people that I love, um, just in real life. Like, I know most of you guys in real life. So thanks for joining me here. I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Um, I, uh, I work tonight and I feel like I need a nap. So you guys have a great Sunday. Enjoy yourself in life wherever you are, and I will tune back in at another time. Bye.